Hello, this is Neil Fontaine, the art instructor at masterpaintingnow.com and Udemy, and I got something cool here for you guys. This is going to be sped up. However, even though this is going to be sped up, I'm going to go through a lot of commentary. It's sped up to 400%, so the original video is about an hour and I think 50 minutes long. And the actual video you can watch, if you want to watch the full real-time video where I explain everything step by step, you can find that. This is what we're going to be drawing here. This is the end result. And if you want to watch that full thing from the beginning to end where I go in real time, I share all my thoughts as I'm drawing, when I'm drawing, then that full lesson is available on my paid channel. It's only $1.99 a month, and it's my subscription channel. I'll go ahead and link to that in this video. And also you can get to it by just going to my homepage here on this channel, and you'll see my other channels there linked to it. It's my other Learn to Draw channel, and it's where I put my more lengthy, extensive lessons. There's like 60 something lessons there already, so you can't really beat it. You also get a 14-day free trial. Right, so anyway, this is just showing the before and after stuff that I had done. This is at the very end of the video. I'm putting the end of the video first, and then you'll have the end of the video again, but I just wanted to show what it was we're going to be drawing here. Right, so this is a full from sketch to finished drawing here. That's what we're going to be going through right now. So the whole entire thing. And again, if you want to watch the full lesson, go ahead and check that out on the other channel. I also have other channels too for those that are interested in. I have an RC channel. It goes through rock crawling and racing and tips and stuff like that. I just now about to put a rock crawling, comp crawling tip thing up, how to comp crawl, little tips and tricks on how to get better at it. And yeah, anyway. So the first thing I do is I start out with a sketch, like some sort of like loose idea of gesture. And gesture is typically, what the curvatures that you want to establish. And here I want to establish this kind of almost like an S curve to the body itself. And I want to fit the body into the S curve. Now, this is what's so cool about unrealistic type drawings. Now you can make a realistic drawing, bend and warp reality, but it's so much easier when you do this with a comic style drawing, is that you can, even cartoon, you can really warp and bend the way that the body works to achieve this really cool effect where, a real person could never pose themselves like this. It'd be very difficult, at least, to say the least. And then, of course, the body style itself, not being realistic, but being more comic style, the so-called ideal body. But yeah, so the first thing I'm thinking about is I know I want the upper body to be kind of like this 3/4 view. The lower body, I don't want to be too much 3/4 view, but I do want it to be a little bit 3/4 view. So as I'm working this out, I'm just thinking about more of the bigger structures first before I think about anatomy, all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously I've already put a little bit of anatomy into there, but mainly I'm thinking about the main structures first. Now, I'm also thinking about balance here. Where that bottom foot is, I'm imagining a straight line coming up to about her nose so that she is balanced. If not, she'll be off balance. You want to make sure that your pose looks balanced. It doesn't look like the person's about to like tip over and be like impossible to hold himself in that position. Also, another thing I decided to do with the sketch is I really kind of push the hip to, I guess, torso type of region. Uh, Typically, that section's much shorter. I also want to give her longer legs to kind of compensate for that. Now, this kind of figure, wouldn't be very realistic. Wouldn't have such a long torso on a body like that. And I kind of, picked this up from manga. So I kind of have this kind of manga comic-y kind of slash style that has kind of become my own style. And I don't know, I like it. It's the way I like to draw. So, and that's really what you got to do, is make it fun for yourself. And one thing I talk about in the real-time video, somewhere around this point here, is that great artists start off drawing realistically. Even artists like Monet and artists that people like Escher, MC Escher. Actually, he mostly did realism. That's what I meant to say Picasso. Picasso, people think it's really childish, some of his drawings and paintings, and really abstract, and just like, oh, that guy wasn't a real artist. But look at some of his earlier stuff. That dude was a master. He was able to draw, just masterly paint great realistic people and great realistic scenes with great lighting. I mean, he was a master painter, and he obviously got bored with it and started to stylize. Same thing with Monet. Monet used to draw just fantastic realistic paintings, and then he obviously got bored with it and started going more towards some sort of style. And the style that he chose to go with was this kind of what I guess a impressionistic style, where you're kind of just using big broad brush strokes and lots of really cool primary kind of colors, you know, really bright kind of colors. You know, even in the skin, like using just straight blues in the skin. So really exaggerated color schemes. And those colors are actually used in the skin, but much more subtly to get a realism. And so he just, you know, pushed it to the extreme and just like said, forget it, I'm just going to leave it almost like unfinished, you know. And it gave this really cool effect and really cool look to his paintings. And so he developed his own style with this kind of impressionistic way and exaggeration of colors and stuff. And I like it. I think his impressionistic paintings are way better than his realistic paintings. I don't even care for realistic paintings very much, but I really like people that add their own style. And you know, he kind of developed this really cool style for himself and set himself apart. And so it seems that that's what happens to all artists. You know, I started off drawing realistic stuff and got bored with it, and I started going towards different styles. And I really liked, you know, different types of speed painting styles and stuff, and almost like impressionist type stuff. But I ended up going with this kind of. I like comic work. I really like it a lot. So really stylized comic work and cartoon stuff is where I found my home. I liked it. I really enjoy that the most. And so it's all about enjoying it. You know, do what you enjoy. Right. So when I'm, you know, in the real time here, I'm going through all the explanation. I'm sharing everything in my head, why I'm doing what I'm doing. What I'm trying to work out here is in the shirt and the design of the clothing is she's going to be a race car girl. So she's going to be like my mascot for my race car, my YZ2 RC car by Yokomo. And it's my painting scheme is this kind of hot pink and white for the body style. That's how I have my car painted. And the wheels are also hot pink. And so I dye them. You can buy white wheels and you dye them with you can dye it with hair dye. You can dye it with all kinds of stuff. I dye mine with a RIT dye, a clothing dye. I happen to find this like fuchsia pink color, which is really cool. And anyway, as I'm working out the clothing, I'm thinking about the form and the shape. I talk about the horizon line there. You got to think about what horizon line is. In this case, the horizon line is actually like more by her kneecaps, so we're kind of like looking up at her a little bit. And that's why I drew the curvature of her shorts upward. If the horizon line had been more by her breast or more by her waist, then the short line would not have been curved up, it curved down a little bit. Yeah, so that's how that works. And then I'm designing some sort of high heel shoes here. I just kind of want to put that in there. I'm kind of thinking about them as boots first. I'm not really sure whether or not I want to kind of make them boots or make them high heel shoes. I end up going with high heel shoes though, as you saw there in the end video. And you know, designing the clothing can sometimes be difficult if you don't have a lot of clothing design in your background. Now you can kind of get inspiration and look at different clothes online, and that really helps you. But you definitely want to know how fabric works, how clothes work, kind of how they're sewn together. I have on my channel here, this free channel. I actually have a little mini type of art lesson. Actually, it's a pretty lengthy art lesson. I think it's 3 parts or something like that. And just type in how to draw clothes. So if you go to my channel's homepage and you click on the little search icon there right next to About, and then there's a little search icon. You click on the little search icon, you can actually go and search whatever you want on my channel, and then search for how to draw clothes. I have quite a few videos on it. I also go into some detail on how to draw clothes in my course on how to draw manga bodies and people. It's actually a really, really cool crash course on drawing clothes. I think I also go into it a little bit in my pinup course, how to draw pinups. Yeah, actually I do. I show the basic idea of clothes. But once you understand that, it's much easier to kind of design clothes from your mind and draw clothes on bodies. But on the real time video, I do go more in detail about it and talk about why I'm making certain wrinkles, where I'm making them, and stuff like that. Now here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to accomplish, you know, how I want the eyes to look. I kind of want this kind of sultry look to her eyes. I'm still debating whether or not I like that or not. So I'm just copying the eye over, and I can kind of change it here and there to make it a little bit different so they're not totally symmetrical. I want to make sure they're the right distance apart, they're on the right angle and all that kind of stuff. And it's just easy to do that if you just copy your eye and carry it over. And main thing I'm thinking about is if I like these eyes, because I was thinking about, do I want this kind of sultry look or do I want her to kind of have more of a cutesy, open eye look? This is what's so cool about, you know, using digital drawing and painting is you can just like change stuff on the fly. You know, if you were working with pencil, you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to just quickly change the size of the eye. You'd have to erase it and draw it all over again. And so this is cool. You already got the eyes already established in your sketch. And so now I can just resize it and bam, there it is, good to go. And if you're working in a vector layer, which I'm doing, when I'm doing my line work, I work in vector layers. The reason why is if you do resize something like that and turn it around, it stays exactly perfect. It doesn't lose any of its, I don't know, what do you call it? Its sharpness. But if you're working in a raster layer, especially on Manga Studio, on Photoshop, it handles raster much better. Anyway, real quickly, what I was doing there is I was deciding whether or not I wanted the chin to if you're looking up at a character, technically you're kind of seeing part of the under part of the chin. And so how I do that kind of W shape is truly what you would see. But I don't like the way it looks, so I cheat. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make it to where we're kind of seeing the bottom shadow of her chin, but we're still going to make the chin look normal. I think it looks better, so that's how I do it. Even in a photograph, if you take a photo of someone like that, I don't like how it makes the chin look. You're just kind of seeing underneath the chin. The shape it creates, I think, is an awkward shape. One thing I do notice later on is that I made her hair way too high. Like the way her ponytails are way too high. They should be more on the side of her head. Now you can wear it like that. I just think it looked better more at the side of her head. So I changed it at the very end. And unfortunately, I don't think I do it on camera. I think I pushed pause on accident and didn't realize I was paused. I also changed her face structure a little bit too. I didn't like it. It's a little too skinny. So I made her jaw a little bit wider and I changed her lips a little bit. Also, after I add painting, I simplify her face a little bit more. I had a little too much detail when I first painted it. So anyway, through this different part and process here, the first thing is a technique that I'm showing here if you wanted to actually change the line work. And all you do is you click on you go to your inking layer, and then you click on and also in the real time I show you like more about how to manage your layers, why I'm using certain layers. But anyway, on your inking layer, you just click the lock transparency icon, and you can actually just go in and change the color of your line work. I actually do choose to do that at the end. I was going to do all black line work. I liked the way it looked, but I'm like, you know what? I think this will look a little bit better if I choose to do the same color line work as the skin and stuff, but to use a slightly darker color. So you just basically pick the color, like I say, your shirt. You just pick the color of a shirt, which would be red or pink. Pick a darker color of that pink, and then go and make all the line work that color. And that's what's cool about having your line work on a separate page is you can go in and change your line work color really easily, which is what I do. And you'll see that again at the end result here at the end. Now, what I'm thinking about here is, I'm thinking, okay, I know I need to represent the curvature of the breast, but there's also, clothes here that's going over it and stretching over it. Now, typically, if that zipper wasn't there, we would have a kind of curved inward kind of wrinkle. And I realized also I put way too much emphasis on her nipples. And I don't know, I guess with the right kind of tight shirt, which this is, nipples can show through quite a bit, but I think I exaggerated a little too much. So what I ended up doing toward the end there is I erased most of or all of I think all of the inking little details there. And I just kind of add subtle details with the change of color and shadow. And this is a really boring part. That's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add squares for the racing stripes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that on a separate layer so that if on a color layer, so if I decide I want to change the colors of the squares, I can. Because I was debating whether I wanted to use like a gold yellow color or whether or not I wanted to use black or like a kind of a deeper purple. Now one thing here also, I kind of made her rib cage and her hip bones I think a little too skinny. I didn't like that. So I ended up adding a little bit more fat to her too here in a little bit. Especially see that right hand side, that's just really anorexic skinny. I didn't like it, so I go ahead and change it to where she has more fat tissue going around her hip bone there. And also I kind of take away some of the detail I have on her ab structure because I don't like abs at all on women. And I wanted kind of like I like abs in the sense that you just have one kind of straight ab structure, but I don't like it where you can see individual abs or even a line in between the center. But I do like it where you can see this kind of, I don't know how to describe it without drawing it, but anyway, where you have the center part of the ab is all one kind of just shape. And then you have the side love handles and the ribs as a separate shape. So it's almost like I guess like a blimp. If you think about a blimp going vertical and just partly sticking out, just that slight shape of ab structure coming out, and then but not individual abs, and not a crease down the center. Sometimes a slight crease on the center is okay. Anyway, that's just my personal preference, and so that's how I draw usually when I draw women. Now all this part right here, when I'm inking this whole thing, I'm telling you all my like little tricks and techniques of inking in the real-time video, like why I'm choosing to do certain lines thin, certain lines thicker, going from thin to thick or thick to thin, and breaking lines, stopping off and breaking it. Make sure you don't have contangents like that right there. You don't want one line running into another, especially at a corner or something like that, because it just makes it look odd. Or tangents, whatever it's called. You just don't want those in your drawing. And then also when you've got things overlapping, you kind of want to use thicker lines on that which is overlapping the other thing, so it looks like it's coming forward more and it kind of adds more three-dimensional depth to your drawing. Breaking up lines is a really good technique, especially where light's hitting and stuff. It really kind of shows that three-dimensionality, which I did to the shoe there. I actually did it in a few different parts throughout the inking stage. At this point, her face looks pretty cool, but I don't really notice it until my girlfriend comes up and sees the colored version. She's like, I don't know, I don't like her face. And I'm like, why not? She's cute. What's wrong with her face? And as I got to look at it more, I'm like, you know what? Maybe you're right. I think her hair is too high, so I changed her hair. And then I changed the detail on her face so there's not so much detail. And I'm like, I don't know, something's still not right. And I changed her lips. I'm like, something's still not right. And I realized it was her jawline. Her jawline's just a little too skinny, and that's like going, really heavy influence from manga and anime style. And so I went with more of an American comic style for her face. I mean, it still looked cute, I think. And it especially looks cute without all the shadow and stuff on it. But once you add all the shadow and stuff, it was just too much for such a small face. Now here's a cool technique: is you just go and you outline everything that you want to color in, and then you just use your paint bucket tool to fill it in. Now you might want to pause the video right there and look at my settings for my paint bucket. In the real time video, I actually talk about my settings and what they are and why they work the way they work. But basically, when you set up that way, you can outline what you want to color in and just click one time, and it'll fill it all in very nicely, to where you don't really have to do any correction or fill in any extra lines at all. Now, I decided to go with this darker brown color for her hair, which I think looks really cool. And I go all around the outline here. And one thing, I like to go ahead and do the skin first and do the hair over the skin. That way when I do individual strands, they're actually fitting over the skin. Now, even in the real-time video, I do the same thing. I go ahead and since I've already described what I'm doing, it's kind of boring to like sit there and watch the whole thing, because all I'm doing is what's called flattening. So since I'm repeating the same technique over and over again, I go ahead and pause the video and just fill in all the colors everywhere. I wanted to show really quickly though how it's doing the belt on one layer, a separate layer, and then doing the squares on a separate layer. That way I can change the squares easily. Another thing I can do too, since I've messed up, is I can just go into the selection and then select the color gamut, choose that color, and only that color will be selected. Now I can just change that particular color. And this way I can see, what different colors it look like. I really kind of like the dark purple color, and the blue looks pretty cool too. But ultimately I decided to go with black. Now, when the color was yellow on white, it was really hard to see all those little lines and gaps I'd missed in the coloring. And so I had to pause the video and go in and fill all that in real quick, just because it'd be kind of boring to watch me fill in a bunch of squares. Right, so once you have the flats done, now the real fun begins. I think that's the most boring part. I really like the sketching. Inking's okay, it's not my favorite. But I really loathe the flattening part, getting the initial colors down that you want. Here's a really cool technique I use, is I take a copy of her colored layer and I set it to multiply, and then I adjust the parameters a little bit there, as you can see in the tone or whatever, and kind of change it towards a little desaturated, a little more to the blue side. And now I make a layer mask that hides it, and then drawing on that layer mask with any color really, and in this program, unlike Photoshop, you can use any color you want, and then you want to use the transparent option. On the left-hand side there, you see you have the two colors, white and peach as the background color. And underneath that, you have this little transparent bar. When you click that little transparent bar, it turns whatever tool you're using into eraser. And so you can instantly use your brush as an eraser to erase different parts that you don't want to be shown up. I'll actually end up turning the airbrush on so I can have a nice smooth, kind of eraser. Set it to that transparent color, and that way I can use that as an eraser and kind of blend the shadow colors. But this really saves a lot of time, because if you notice, as I'm going all across and revealing this underlayer, so it's a mask that's revealing a layer that I changed, a copy, for shadows. I think it works really good. I use it a lot. What's really cool about this is it automatically kind of, because it's set to multiply and I have the saturation down, it automatically kind of blends in with the colors as you would expect shadow to do. It kind of chooses the right color for me, because that color is already there, hidden by the mask. And when I go in and I fix all this, I just kind of put harder shadows first, and I go in and I, to show the main form, then I go in with this airbrush tool set to transparent here. That is on that lower left-hand side right there where the color picker is. I choose that transparent color. So right now I just start blurring all the edges out with that eraser, so that it already starts kind of looking more like a painting and less like this kind of hard cell type shape or cell. Anyway, just look it up. It's for comic books. It's a cell coloring type style. I want mine to look more like a kind of a painted style, but still cartoony. Cartoony painted is this, I don't know, it's its own thing. It's kind of cool. Anyway, what I was going to say is that when you run across a white color, you'll notice that the shadow is much lighter. So you don't have to like sit there and work all that out. Now here's where I show where you have like that two different shapes there. And I'm deciding how I want to shadow this. And I decide I want to shadow it to where it's more like one kind of shape with maybe a little bit down the center, um, rather than showing individual abs and stuff. And at first I kind of like make it to where it's like two different pieces. I'm like, you know what? I don't really like that. I want the abs to kind of just be one mound of flesh, and I think that looks better. And I talk a little bit more about form and stuff like that. Definitely though, if you want to learn form, I highly recommend my form course. And there's really no reason no more to buy it by itself. It comes bundled with a course on Udemy I have called How to Draw and Paint Comics. And the first part of that, it's actually 7 courses bundled into one package. And the first part of it is how to draw form, light, and perspective. The main fundamental foundations to draw anything at all. And understanding that, if you go through that course, you'll be able to really shadow anything from imagination. And once you understand the forms that you're dealing with, and you know how to shade form and shadow form and light form, then you'll be able to do any form at all, including the human body. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm using all that knowledge I teach in that course. I know some people feel like, oh, that's just advertising, man. Hey, I can try to direct you to other courses too, and sometimes I do. But honestly, there's really nothing out there that I found. That's why I made the course that was really teaching like good on form and stuff like that. I know Vilpu does a decent job at it, but he's really expensive too. If you want to go fork out $400 for his just one of his little courses, like for uh, try not to cuss here. I know it's not like a bad thing to cuss. I just try not to cuss on the YouTube channel, but just for because there's a lot of children and stuff that watch this, and I want their parents to feel comfortable letting them watch it. But anyway, so for a few hours of teaching, you're spending a few $100s, and yeah, if you want to do that, it's fine. But ultimately, I really do believe that my course teaches it in a way that's really easy to understand, and my students are all can testify to that. It's helped them a lot, and you can see a lot of their progress. Some of them have posted their progress and stuff on the actual Udemy course page. And so here I'm using a technique where I'm using a glow. I set my airbrush to glow and kind of add a little bit of glow to it. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of change it because I think too much glow on hair, it like makes it look a little too fake, a little too manga stylish, which is fine. I mean, manga glowy hair is cool and I like it. I like that style, but for this purpose, I wanted something a little more subtle. So a little bit of glow is cool, and then the rest of it I'm just going to kind of blend together with different colors. But it gives me a lot of cool colors to work with. Also, setting a brush to saturation. I'll set another paintbrush and I'll set the options of the paintbrush to saturation, not the layer, but the options of the paintbrush itself. And I set it to I have kind of a hard time with this. I'm so used to Photoshop, and Manga Studio works a little bit different. But anyway, I set it to overlay or soft light, depends how strong with the colors, and use a bunch of different colors and just kind of start painting right on top of the skin and stuff. And what that does is it gets rid of the monotone, this kind of muddy look. Right now she looks really muddy. Her skin tone just looks really muddy and not very realistic because realistic skin has a bunch of colors in it. Anyway, how I end up solving this is I make a separate file altogether. I make that file much bigger, and then I go ahead and type in the master painting now into that file, and then I turn it vertically, and then I go ahead and copy and paste it into this file here. That way I can have it going vertically like that. I couldn't figure out how to do it in Manga Studio for some reason. I could have sworn there's a way to like type on a line. You can like make a line and draw it and then type on that line. I'm pretty sure there is. I made a course on how to use Manga Studio, but I don't know if I ever actually went into that particular part or not. I haven't done it in so long. That when I made that course, if I did do it, then I've forgotten how to do it. And it's one of those things, if you don't do something enough, you kind of forget how it's done. But I think it has a way. I know how to do it in Photoshop. But anyway, here was a workaround. So, I can always think of a workaround if I can't figure out how to do it. Now, here's where I'm using a bunch of colors. I'm using like the saturated kind of orangish color, and I'm adding it all over her skin. And then I'll use like yellow, and I'll use pinks, and I'll use even blues and greens, purples, all kinds of colors. I'm going to add that with a soft light so it kind of doesn't destroy what's there, but it adds to it. And I'm going to add highlight colors, in this case kind of a softer yellow color for the highlight, and this will really kind of bring out the form more. And then I'll use different kind of like lighter colors of the version of the color that I'm painting. So her clothes, I'll use a lighter pink color for the shadow or for the lighting and stuff like that. But usually I want it to be a little bit more toward the warm side. And you can see here now it's already starting. Here's a little bit of purple into the shadow. As you begin to add these different colors to the skin, you'll notice in all the clothing and stuff, it takes away that muddy look that it had. And I think this is really important if you want your cartoons, anything, whether it be a painting or whatever it is. This is kind of a comic-y cartoon style, but with more of a painted style for the coloring, for the rendering. But if you use a bunch of colors rather than just one color for what you're doing, you're going to see it adds a whole new depth to your comic art too. Even if you do cell shading, and here I'm doing what's called texturizing, and I'm not going to have enough time to really talk about what that is, what I'm doing there, but in the real-time video I show how I'm doing that texturizing. I show it up close, and I explain it step by step. So texturizing is really cool. It adds a really cool effect to clothing and stuff like that. You can see the nipples right now are just way too prominent, and I bumped that way down. But yeah, so even if you're doing cell shading type of look or something like that, or even just a very basic single layer, one sharp layer for your shadows, one for your highlights, it's still good to go in that shadow layer and then change some of the colors within the shadow layer. I'll make another video talking about what I'm talking about, so you can stick to this kind of cell shaded type of look where all the shadows and stuff are very sharp and not blended in, but that you have this kind of multitude of colors within shadows and within the light and stuff like that, and you can kind of change it. I kind of use it in my book, comic book, End of All, and unfortunately I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to finish that. Just can't find the time. Here I decided that I think it'd be really cool to have this kind of almost overblown look, like when a camera just gets a little too much light and it kind of overblows some stuff where the light is hitting. I thought that looked kind of cool, so I just overblow it here, and I think it looks really cool how it just kind of makes it look like it's over, the light's overdone, but it looks cool. It adds a lot of form and I think character to the drawing. And then what I do here is I totally changed the face. So then I just show the before and after. Unfortunately I didn't record it, so it's one of those things where I hit pause, forgot to unpause, and so I was like talking to myself for a long time, I guess. I'm talking to myself regardless, but and unfortunately I didn't capture it on camera. So, but what you will see here in a second, I'm just kind of showing the end product here, is a quick close up, and we've already seen this at the very beginning of the video, and I'm going to show like back and forth like what I changed about her face. And you can see some of the stippling there I did in the clothing, the texture, and the clothing looks really cool. But overall, I really liked the end result. Came out really cool, and this will be on my chassis. So I'm almost like advertising for my thing while I'm racing cars. My car flips over and crashes, and someone looks at the bottom of it, or one of the marshals picks it up, and they see this sexy girl, and then they see masterpaintnow.com. They're like, oh, hey, I might check that site out, or they might come and talk to me afterwards. And it's you never know the weirdest places you can open up business for links with people. And so now you can see her face. It looks a lot cuter now, like this with a slightly wider jaw. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you've not subscribed yet. I'm constantly making new videos and stuff, and leave a comment. I really appreciate it. I like comments, and let me know what you'd like to see, what you liked, what you disliked. Thanks for watching.